getting close to that's the end of the show. So, oh, Mike, I wanted to talk to you about some actual podcast related stuff. I wrote some notes in here. So you will be excited to know that our numbers for the premiere episode, they're pretty high for the first week.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was interesting to see the number of listeners of the show with Westworld versus House of the Dragon. So, to deceive you listeners, this is not a huge podcast by any stretch, mainly because I don't know how to promote a podcast. But, and we also, Mike and I took a 1.5 year hiatus. So, because I had a kid, and also we lost a lot of listeners after Game of Thrones went off the air. So, once we came back, like, I don't know, I guess it's been 10 weeks ago now. Once we started taking YouTube a bit more seriously and started introducing clips and stuff like that, YouTube ended up outpacing the audio podcast for Westworld by a lot. Some of those episodes and clips got picked up by the algorithm, which really boosted viewership and subscribers. But Westworld always had less download numbers than our Game of Thrones one. House of Dragon so far has been the opposite. The YouTube algorithm hasn't really picked up the clips as much as the Westworld one. I think that might be because there's more competition for Game of Thrones stuff, because we found out that House of the Dragon had like 10 million viewers, and there's definitely not that many people watching Westworld.
No, not even close. And I did notice what you're talking about, because I will check in on YouTube and our channel every so often, at least once a week, usually multiple times a week. That's just to see, comments, see how many listeners, watchers there are. And yeah, I was surprised that I haven't looked at it in, I don't know, a couple days, but yeah, I was surprised that there were still Westworld, ones that were higher than a House of the Dragon one. I don't know if that's changed in the past couple days. Okay.
It's still getting, the Westworld ones are still actually getting comments on it too. Like the algorithm's still feeding those to people, which is cool, because
it's probably because people are angry as fuck at how stupid Westworld was. So we know that anger, gets people to do things way more than than happiness. So
anger feeds engagement, but positive stuff seems to tend to go more viral, is what I think I've noticed. But yeah, so in terms of that, I would say the Westworld podcast, if we're talking strictly the audio numbers, the highest downloaded audio version of Westworld was episode 5, Zhuangzhou or whatever it was. Episode 5, the last one we actually really liked. And our last week's episode of House of the Dragon, 4 times that download number.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
The audio is doing a lot better.
Yeah, the audio for House of the Dragon is doing a lot better than the audio for Westworld was. Awesome. Westworld was always low. It would get there after the show was over, like it would always trickle up over time. But in terms of like initial listenership, we're back. We're still not as high as we were last season of Game of Thrones, because we got picked up. We were featured on a page on our podcast host when that season started. They had like once Game of Thrones aired, it's like, check out these Game of Thrones podcasts. And we had been on that platform for like years. So they put us like right in the middle for like 3 days, and that really boosted our numbers. So we're not quite there yet, but YouTube, it's still doing good. Even though the algorithm isn't feeding the House of the Dragon stuff, but hopefully as we add more stuff, it will do so. We're closing in on 100 subscribers on YouTube, Mike.
Sweet.
100, which when we started 10 weeks ago, we had 8. So
yeah, it's really exciting. I'm happy. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Yeah.
I mean, however you listen,
let us know. Email us, voicemail. Leave the comments. We love it.
Leave the comments. However you listen, it doesn't matter if you listen on audio or YouTube. Every listener is very much appreciated. But we are, at the time of recording this, I think we have 85 subscribers. So we have 15 more to go before we hit the big 100. And that's a milestone on YouTube. That's when you actually get to customize your URL, and you can put your channel name in the URL. So you're not youtube.com/channel/ a bunch of gibberish. We could actually be youtube.com/watchers on the couch.
We need some more city watchers on the couch.
City
Join us. Tell your friends.
Yeah. if we continue on our current trend, we'll hopefully hit 100 by mid-September. But I mean, hey, if you're a podcast listener and you didn't know we have a YouTube, we post shorts on there from the show and things like that. So it would be cool. Next milestone after that is 500 subscribers. That's a lot of subscribers. So I doubt we'd hit that soonish. But that's when you get the community tab on YouTube and you'd be able to make posts and polls and stuff to engage with the community, which I think would go a long way to increase interaction with the audience and make our show better. But you know what? 500 that's a big ask. That's I'm not even sure if we've ever had an episode get 500. We've had 400.
Mm-hmm. We're going to do it.
We're going to do it. It's a lot easier to, that's the other thing is with this podcast, since we were seasonal for so long. I mean, we're still kind of seasonal. It just happens to be that all of the shows are lining up at the same time. But it's usually like, yeah, we do 10 episodes a year and that's it. But like we've got a stint going right now. I kind of wish we had the time to do the Lord of the Rings the show that's premiering on Thursday, but I can barely get this show out. I don't have the time to do two at once.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if I have that much interest in that show.
Oh, I remember what I was going to talk about. As I completely derailed myself. For the 100th subscriber on YouTube, I was thinking about doing some kind of special content. I haven't decided what to do yet. So if anybody has any ideas, that would be cool. But I had two ideas. One was kind of a round table, like in-person discussion, because we haven't been at a table together for a while. Just kind of like about the show. Maybe we do some Q&A if we have enough Q&A, or talk about kind of where we want to see the show go long term, with like maybe me, Mike, and Chris would be on that, because Chris has expressed some interest in bringing back his Castle Rock, tentatively titled Castle Rock and Beyond, to talk about Stephen King movies and television shows, bringing that back. The other idea that I had was for a 100th subscriber thing is mainly just kind of do a behind the scenes of what it takes for me to actually put this show together from pre-production to post-production, and maybe put that on my other channel, my Onyx Edge Studios YouTube channel, just like a whole big walkthrough from writing the notes and editing the show afterwards, getting it all split up, put on YouTube, because there's a lot that goes into it. Holy shit.
Yeah, you do definitely put in a lot of time for it.
Did you watch the video version of the last podcast?
Just a little bit of it.
Boy, I put way too much effort in. I put an unsustainable amount of effort into that video with all the different angle switches and things like that. It's like, oh my God.
I noticed that and I was like, oh, all right, that's awesome. I was like, and then I was like, oh man, that'd take a little while.
Yeah. And I wanted the YouTube definitely helps the listenership for sure, and growing an audience, but man, having to do video really increases the turnaround time, because it used to be when we do the show, as soon as I was done recording, I could get the audio version out within like the next hour and a half. And now it's, if I do video, then it has to render overnight or something like that. And then it has to upload, and it's like, however many gigs for an hour and a half podcast. So it's a much slower process now.
No, I appreciate it.
But we're great. We are a great podcast. Thank you, Mike. We're a great podcast. I don't want to toot my own horn too much, but man, I was listening to some other after shows, and it's like, man, I know these guys have more listeners, and they're like professional, like TV and film people, but man, their show's fucking boring. Like, oh, such and such directed this scene or this episode, and he's also directed things like blah, blah, blah. So who gives a fuck? Who cares?
Yeah,
Also, I got to sit, I write for Variety as well, and I got to sit down with Matt Smith and Millie Aycock about blah, 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 blah. Oh, fuck off. I don't care if you got to write for Variety and interview people. What about Daemon Targaryen's dick? That's what people want to hear about. If you enjoyed that clip, you might want to bend the knee to the full episode right here and in the description. Maester Google implores you to appease the gods by watching this one. Pledge your loyalty to the podcast by sending a raven through the like and subscribe button. We have cake!